What if the world's most famous skyline didn't exist just a century ago? Today, New York feels eternal, a city of towering skyscrapers, endless energy, and global influence. But rewind the clock a few hundred years, and this iconic metropolis was nothing more than forests, rivers, and a small cluster of wooden buildings at the edge of the unknown. So how did a remote trading post grow into one of the most powerful cities on Earth? This is the story of how New York became a global city, long before the bright lights of Times Square or the roar of traffic across Manhattan. The region was home to Native American communities who lived along its rivers and coastal plains. Dense forests covered much of the land, and wildlife was abundant. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples hunted, fished, and cultivated the environment, forming deep connections with the landscape that would one day become one of the busiest places in the world. Everything began to change in the early 16th century as European powers pushed across the Atlantic in search of trade routes and resources. Explorers sailing under different flags mapped the coastline, opening the door for future settlement. But it was not until the early 17th century that lasting European influence arrived. In 1609, an expedition led by Henry Hudson, working for Dutch interests, sailed into the harbor and up the great river that now bears his name. His voyage gave the Dutch Republic a foothold in the region and sparked ambitions for a new colonial enterprise. To secure their presence, they constructed a fortified settlement on the southern tip of Manhattan. Around this defensive hub, a small town began to grow. New Amsterdam. Wooden houses, warehouses, and narrow streets formed the nucleus of a young colony built on commerce and opportunity. By the mid-1600s, settlers from across Europe had arrived, bringing diverse languages, customs, and beliefs that shaped the city's early character. Yet New Amsterdam's future would not remain in Dutch hands for long. The 17th century was an age of intense rivalry between European powers, and control of strategic ports meant economic dominance. In 1664, English forces sailed into the harbor and demanded the colony's surrender. Facing overwhelming pressure, the Dutch handed over the settlement without major resistance. The English renamed it New York, honoring the Duke of York, and the city entered a new phase under British rule. Despite the change in authority, many Dutch traditions and institutions endured, leaving a lasting cultural imprint. Throughout the 18th century, New York grew steadily as a center of trade and immigration. Ships carried goods, people, and ideas through its busy harbor. But the city was also shaped by the darker realities of the colonial era, including the presence of slavery, which played a significant role in its economy. As tensions between the American colonies and Britain intensified, New York became a focal point for political debate and revolutionary activity. Meetings, protests, and organizing efforts turned the city into a hotbed of resistance against imperial control. When the American Revolution broke out, New York's strategic importance made it a key battleground. British forces occupied the city for much of the conflict, using it as a base for military operations. Only after the war ended in 1783 did New York truly begin to transform into a symbol of a new nation. For a brief period, it even served as the capital of the United States, hosting major milestones such as the inauguration of the first president and the early meetings of Congress. The 19th century marked an era of explosive growth. The construction of the Erie Canal connected the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes, turning New York into the nation's most important trading hub. Goods flowed through the harbor, and immigrants arrived in massive numbers, seeking opportunity and a fresh start. The city's population surged, and neighborhoods filled with people from across Europe and beyond. This cultural diversity gave New York its unique identity, a place where languages, traditions, and ideas blended together. But rapid expansion also brought challenges. Overcrowded housing, disease outbreaks, and devastating fires tested the city's resilience. Poverty and crime emerged alongside wealth and innovation. Despite these struggles, New York continued to build upward and outward. Public spaces like Central Park offered relief from crowded streets, while cultural institutions, museums, libraries, and theaters transformed the city into a center of art and learning. By the late 19th century, engineering achievements reshaped the urban landscape. The Brooklyn Bridge connected communities across the East River, and the Statue of Liberty rose in the harbor as a symbol of hope for millions arriving by sea. For newcomers stepping onto American soil, the towering figure represented possibility, and New York became synonymous with new beginnings. As the 20th century began, technological ambition defined the city's identity. The opening of the subway system connected neighborhoods like never before, fueling expansion and movement. Architects and developers competed to construct ever taller buildings, giving rise to the skyline that would define New York's image around the world. Structures like the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building became icons of modernity, reflecting both economic confidence and artistic vision. The 1920s brought an era of energy and nightlife, with jazz clubs, theaters, and bustling streets creating a culture unlike anywhere else. Yet prosperity proved fragile. The Wall Street crash of 1929 plunged the city into hardship, and the Great Depression left many residents struggling to survive. Parks filled with makeshift shelters, and unemployment soared. Even so, New York endured, adapting to each crisis as it had so many times before. World War II marked another turning point. The city's ports and factories became essential to the war effort, producing equipment and transporting troops across the Atlantic. When the war ended, New York emerged stronger than ever. As many European cities rebuilt from devastation, New York rose to global prominence, becoming a center of finance, art, and international diplomacy. The establishment of the United Nations headquarters symbolized its new role on the world stage. The decades that followed were not without struggle. Economic challenges and rising crime in the 1970s gave the city a reputation for danger and decline. Yet once again, New York reinvented itself. Redevelopment projects reshaped neighborhoods, and new architecture transformed the skyline. Modern glass towers joined historic landmarks, reflecting the city's constant evolution. Today, New York stands as a symbol of resilience and reinvention. From its beginnings as a small Dutch trading post to its status as a global metropolis, the city has never stopped changing. Every era has left its mark: indigenous heritage, colonial ambition, revolutionary spirit, industrial growth, cultural creativity, and modern innovation, all layered together in one place. What makes New York truly remarkable is not just its size or influence, but its ability to transform again and again. No matter how many times it has faced crisis or uncertainty, the city has always found a way to rebuild and redefine itself. And perhaps that is why New York continues to capture the imagination of the world, because its story is still being written, one reinvention at a time. Every year, a beautiful piece of history is added, and that's why we'll never stop talking about New York City. New buildings, new people, new memories. That's what makes it all special. Everyone has their own little piece of memory. And that's also why everyone sees New York differently. Some have wonderful memories, while others prefer not to talk about them. But one thing we all have in common is the memory. Let me know in the comments what you think of New York City. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.